Correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience. Hey folks, what's up? Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm here tonight with my buddy Steve.
Hey Steve, how's it going?
Oh, you know, it's a day of the week, and
It ends in Y.
yes, exactly, it does. It ends in Y.
My
So,
day has ended in Y all day long.
Well, I have a lot of days that end with Y, but you know.
Yeah.
So we've got some stuff to talk about tonight, but before we do that, I want to shout out another show here on the D20 Radio Network, and this week it's going to be the Opcast.
Yeah, the Opcast. Some really cool stuff happening over there.
Yep, which if you haven't checked them out, it's Josh Heath and Chaz, and I believe there's a third co-host, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
Every time. Every time. Look, here's the deal. Opcast, third co-host, you need to get on our podcast. You got to come talk to us. I don't care. We got to talk to you because this has been a problem every time we talk about the Opcast.
Yeah, and I'm like, well,
We've talked to Chaz. We've talked to Josh. We need to talk to that third co-host.
Well, and the thing of it is like, right, I have this weird thing about World of Darkness games where I really want to get into them, but that's a really, really big slope to start sliding down.
And it's very slippery.
And I already have enough games
to LARP.
that I don't have read, so...
Don't have read, yes.
Yes.
Don't have read.
Yes, don't have read.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And I've been wanting to get into World of Darkness myself, so maybe we can get that third co-host to come on and run a World of Darkness game for us. Come on, somebody.
But anyway, it's the podcast is all about Aeon, Aberrant, Adventure, and the rest of all that kind of corner of the Darkness system. They actually just dropped a new episode today as we're recording called it's called Aberrant Worldwide Phase 1 Part 2. So I don't know exactly what it's about, but I know the people involved are really cool people and know their stuff. So yeah, check that out, the OP Cast.
Very cool stuff happening over there. Anyways, so some not so cool stuff has happened with me, which has started our topic for the day.
Aha.
I was running my weekly.
It's been hot as crap here the first half of the week. That was not cool.
No, it's been hot. It's been humid. It's rained every day. I've been trying to cut my grass for, I kid you not, like 2 weeks now. And every time I get time to do it, it rains. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's not what I'm complaining about. What I'm complaining about
to me tonight, like you were complaining.
Well, but that's not what the podcast is about, is it now? I mean, I could sit here and gripe about all the little dumb chores I have and complain about my life, but that's not what we're here to do.
Fair enough.
What we are here to do is talk about the time that I lost power in the middle of a freaking session and lost all momentum. So we're playing what is going to be the second to last game for Act 1 of my D&D campaign. I've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. It's just time for a break from D&D. And so we were playing fine. We were gaining momentum. Big things were happening. I gave them a djinn that actually had wishes. And the power goes out in the mall where we play.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like in the middle of a combat where it's very important that, the combat happened. And we just sort of hurry up, finish combat, and now what? Because I can't see to read any sort of notes. I can't see to read, any of the books. We're working off phone lights, and I'm defeated at this point. I'm like, okay, I just want to call it, but I know nobody else wants to call it because we were like an hour and a half into a 4-hour session.
Mm-hmm.
it's a terrible time for that to happen. You know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
yeah, and especially, like, if you're into that segment of the campaign, like, everybody's wound up, everybody wants to
Yeah.
go, and yeah, it
Well, no, I think the worst part, and this wouldn't it's not a big deal if the power goes out for a second. And it's not a big deal if the power goes out and it seems like it's gonna be out for a significant amount of time. Because both of those are like power goes out for a second, oh, power's out, oh, power's back. Or the latter where it's like, oh, power's out, but we think it'll be back tomorrow. Okay, well, we're just gonna wrap it here then.
mhm.
But the general consensus was, I don't know, it shouldn't be out that long.
Well, yeah.
And so we sat there and we played a little bit. We did the best we could, but it was like, oh man, after that, I was done. I was like, I'm out of gas. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Like, we're just going to have to, like, I tried to plow on as best I could, but I was like, we just got to call it like an hour early because I don't know. I just ran out of steam.
Well, I think it threw everything off.
Right.
And that's a weird thing, like, you wouldn't think that momentum would be a thing for game mastery, but I guess it is, and I think too, some of it's a rhythm, and as much as you wanna say, "Well, but yeah, phone lights, so now everyone's holding up their phone," and then, I don't know, you're a lot like me in that, "Okay, oh, what's that light over there?" "What's that thing
Right.
that I half see?" I
Right. What's
imagine there was
that
some
beeping?
emergency lighting somewhere that was kind of throwing some light in areas that probably made it harder to see what you were actually doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it's like this is just it's just been a and I didn't want to wrap because I knew we only had 2 sessions left of that.
Mhm.
And you almost are like, okay, well I know I got to power through this somehow. But as a GM, once those breaks get hit, it's not like so it's one thing we've talked about you hitting the brakes and being like, okay, we got to take a break here. I need to get my bearings. Like, no, it's when something outside of your control makes the entire table go, "Bleh,"
Yeah.
that's it's bizarre. It's
Yeah.
really like annoying.
Well, and I think in your case too, you've got a certain amount of story and plot that you wanna get through. I'm sure there's a certain amount of it that your players are expecting because, okay, this act is wrapping up. We need to resolve this, this, and this.
Right.
And you have, albeit self-imposed, but you also have a deadline there.
Yeah.
So now you're faced with, and I'm just gonna, you planned on having 8 hours in which to fulfill all these things.
Hmm.
Now the power goes out.
Yeah. Now
So,
it's like I have 6 hours.
and so yeah, it's 6. Now what do you do? Because invariably the power goes out. It's going to be a couple minutes, even if it just, if it just blinks back on in a minute or two, okay, we probably don't lose too much. But once it stays out for more than 5 minutes, now there's the, okay, what are we going to do conversation,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
kind of grinds everything to a halt.
Yeah, that ground to a halt. And then my table, and I love them to death, but they all have, we all get to the chattering.
Hmm.
So it's not just a conversation of, oh, well, what are we going to do? It's a conversation of what are we going to do? What'd you have for dinner last night? What are you doing tomorrow? Like we all get to the chattering.
Right.
What's going on with this place? Why is that like that? The table talk did commence, and that completely like after sitting there and yapping to him for what I'll say felt like 15, 20 minutes, it was enough to screw me up for the rest of the session to
Hmm.
where I'm like, I forgot what I had planned. The combat I had planned kind of went out the window because we had a ticking time clock. It's like everything just collapsed under its own weight.
So what are you going to do?
Well, what I ended up doing was the best I could. I
Hmm.
picked up the pieces. I knew the very core of what I wanted to cover. I then we went as far as we could, and I just was like, we're gonna have to call it early because I lost my momentum and don't know what's going on right now. But what I did do was I set the players up with a situation. I gave them so prior to losing the power, we had not discussed the fact they had not acquired a djinn yet, or a genie. After power came back, I planned that from the beginning, and I was like, okay, well, we're gonna give them this genie, and that's gonna be it. We're just gonna do that, and then they have, and I basically sent them home with like homework. I was like, figure out what you want to do because you have 3 wishes, and it's effectively 3 casts of the wish spell.
Mm-hmm.
So figure out how you want to do this, how you want to word it. And I told them, I'm like, if you do it right, you can skip this last combat without having to do it. So we'll see what they come back with. But I just ended up wrapping it up and being like, all right, I gotta walk away and let you guys fight over what happens next. And yeah, so we'll see how that pans out. Because we were gonna play today, but we didn't end up. Some stuff happened today, and we just weren't able to get together.
Mm-hmm.
But next week we'll find out how that all concludes. But it was sort of like I did the thing that I tend to do when I'm frustrated with tabletop RPGs or frustrated as a GM, which
Mm-hmm.
is I go to my players and I go, all right, you figure it out. And I don't mean that in that like, oh, I went to my players and I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do. You figure it out. I mean, like I just left an open-ended question to the table and was like, okay, what happens next? Because you dictate where I go at this point, because I don't remember where I wanted to go myself.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, it's an option. It's not a great
Yeah.
option all the time, but it's an option.
Well, I mean, yeah, on some level, what can you do?
Yeah, on another level, I'm sure there was probably more I could have done. And yeah, I'm sure if I was a different GM and took more detailed notes, yeah, I could have probably regained momentum. But I'm not that guy. I'm not the notes guy.
Yeah, and neither am I. So, like, that's, I wonder too, though, like, at what point, because different things can do that in a game too. Like, I mean, we've talked about it before. We had the Cyberpunk game I was running that COVID
Oh,
kind of just,
COVID destroyed.
yeah, ran over it and left pieces. And to be fair, we really didn't try to revive that, but I feel like that was in a sense a different level of momentum lost.
Right.
Because I feel like with that one, I had actually finally kind of gotten everyone hooked into the story. It felt like, and it was starting to go somewhere. And then, well, I think too, though, that with that, there was so much where none of us knew what was going on in the world.
No, it was the very early days. Like, it was the early stuff of COVID where we had heard some rumblings about something, and then all of a sudden we were at home being told, don't go out unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Stay at home, stay isolated, stay away from your friends. And so we all collectively were like, we gotta ride this out until it clears up, because it's not feasible now to get together. And I I understand why that killed your campaign.
Oh,
I mean, I don't think anybody would be like, oh man, I can't believe that killed your campaign.
well, I would think not. I mean, that was it. Yeah, it was just one of those things where, and we didn't even really try to revive it. I don't think either. But some of that was because, what was that? I forget how long was it before we got back together.
At least like a year.
Yeah, it was a long time. I remember that much.
And I know like a year was early even for the COVID stuff, but we were all like, I'm clear, I'm clear, I'm clear. Like, we had all
Yeah,
been tested multiple times and we're not taking any, it was one of
yeah,
those, we were all taking precautions and we were all adults and made a calculated risk, and
right. Yeah, it wasn't,
it wasn't a rushed into thing.
no. But I think I think we were chatting online at that point and just kind of decided, yeah,
Let's just do it.
let's
Yeah.
just, because no one remembered what was going on. And I think that was a completely different sort of loss of momentum.
Yeah, that was the trying to pick up your campaign was a real, I don't know. I don't want to say it was a waste because it was worth the shot, but I feel like we should have just
Well, I think there
from the
were,
jump gone, let's either start a new thing or because there was some talk, and I don't know. I feel
I
like
think there
that
were
was
buy-in issues with the system in the first place,
well, yes, I knew that much. I
and
know a
that
couple
is what it
players at the
is.
table had issues.
It just is what it is.
Well, yeah, and the bad thing is when you already have buy-in issues, and then there's a lapse like that, you just
Yeah.
lose the loss of momentum is an absolute disaster.
Yeah, it
Disaster.
definitely can be, and I think, like I said, I felt like we had just kind of turned a corner where I was really starting to get people were starting to grasp what was going on and buy into it, and then we couldn't play it for a long time. And
Yeah,
at
and
that point, I think the choice, I don't want to say I didn't have, but I felt like the obvious choice was just let it go.
yeah, and I hate that it was the choice that we had to come to, but it's hard because it's like how do you pick up a campaign that went on hiatus for almost a year for not almost a year for over a year?
Right, right. And especially when, like, okay, I think that's different though. Like, let's say, and I'm just gonna but you and your buddies that you played with in high school had a game that, because whatever, everybody moved away and all of a sudden you're all back in town for the weekend. Hey, let's get the band back together.
Yeah, but that's not going to still be the same game.
Could be. I know people who have had an ongoing campaign that are my age since like high school days.
Well, that's okay. So
And it's
maybe
had
that's
lapses and whatever, but or maybe not necessarily an ongoing campaign, but they've been playing in an ongoing timeline in the same world.
okay. Yeah, I can understand that. I don't think you would be able to just, all right, we're going to stop the campaign here because Bob's moving to Texas and, Joe's moving to wherever. And, nobody talks to Jason anymore. And like, I could understand where like, you might be like, well, maybe we could play in that world that we sort of built as adventurers together at a different point or,
Yeah.
because you're not going to pick up those characters and know what you were doing years later.
Fair.
At least I wouldn't be able to. I'd be sitting there going, I need to make a new character because I don't know what the hell I was trying to do with this one.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's so I mean, I think in this case, like we were talking about momentum in the context of where it gets hosed, right? Like, but what do you do when it's just sort of lagging out and you're trying to pick it back up? Like I feel like your game, you're going to go back to your next session and everyone's going to be ready and raring to go.
Yeah, and what do you do when nobody's raring and ready to go? Well,
Right.
that's when you got to sort of make. I feel that's when you have to make the assessment of is it time to be done? It's not a question everybody wants to ask with their campaign, but there's time for everything, and I feel like, especially in gaming, when it's time to be done, everybody will sort of tell you in a way.
Mhm.
If everybody at the table's going, uh, we need a break. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Then maybe it's time to be done.
Mhm.
You know, maybe it's time to just call it and move on to something, whether it be in the same system, somebody else is running something, you're running something new, whatever that is. Maybe it's just time to be done with that thing you were doing.
Mhm.
And, it's not always a bad thing. Stuff runs its course. There's
Mhm.
been shows and podcasts and movies that I've watched and been like, yep, I'm happy with the one I saw. And that's it. I don't need to watch anymore. you know?
Yeah.
Or, you're watching a movie and it goes on for too long. You're like, oh, this movie's too long. Like, that sucks.
Well, or you have like, I joke about it, but the movie Speed.
Oh, that movie is so long.
It is, and like there's so many points where they could have just ended it and it would have
Yeah.
been fine.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies that it's like, this movie is way too long. There's no reason that like trying to think what we watched the other night that I was like, this is just taking forever. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember what it was, but there was something we watched and I was just like just staring like can this movie end already, please? And sometimes I get that way. I get that way running games I get that way playing in some people's games. I have ADHD. I also don't medicate, so I chase dopamine. So when it runs out, I sit there and stare at space, and it's a struggle for me. And so it's like sometimes I lose momentum just as a person. I just lose interest in things. And I'm not saying I'm losing interest in tabletop RPGs. I very much love them. I love playing them. I love the hobby. I love the people that I've met along the way. It's not
Mhm.
that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at that with the way I live my life, sometimes that's just a consequence of what I have to do.
Mhm.
So, I
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's, but yeah, it's weird. Like I wouldn't think about momentum being, until you mentioned it. I wouldn't have thought about momentum being such a thing in
yeah,
a
you
game, but
you
it
sort of
is.
don't until you get there. Until you hit something that breaks your momentum and you're like, "Oh, I just hit a wall. I just a brick wall appeared in front of me and I stopped."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really bizarre thing to analyze and think about because no, you're right. I wouldn't think about momentum if I hadn't had this happen this past week.
Hmm. Yeah. And I wonder, is that though? Is it that rhythm of the back and forth that you build up between you and your table? Is that like a big part of it? Is it the beats of the story? That you're just feeling.
I wonder how much of it is maybe not just that, but I lost my train of thought. See, there it goes. Um Beats of the story.
Is that the momentum that you're kind of feeling in some cases?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's the give and take. I think it's a mixture of all of that. It's the story beats and you feeling that sense of progression. That's where I was going. It's you feeling the sense of progression in the story beats and the players reacting to that progression.
Mhm.
And then when that give and take, when the progression stops, you're left having to pick up the pieces. And sometimes that's just impossible at the way the situation stands.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with not being able to pick up. As experienced GMs, life happens. And sometimes you just have to be like, I don't know, life happened. I'm sorry, guys. Because at the end of the day, we're all sitting around playing make believe.
Mhm.
And so sometimes real life gets in the middle of make believe. We've talked about this in the past. Sometimes real life gets in the middle of make believe. And so you have to bring everything to a stop, fix the situation at hand, and then maybe you can pick up and move forward. Maybe you can't. It's okay. It's okay if you can't move forward from that. So maybe it's time for change. Like you said, COVID killed your Cyberpunk campaign. Yes, some of that was player buy-in. Some of that was also, I could tell that you weren't 100% sure on where you wanted to go.
Yeah, especially after that far away from it, it was just kinda like,
Yeah, I understand. And so it's just one of those things where you just got to go. The hands go up, and you go, it's out of my control, and we just got to pick up and move on. And that sucks. I honestly it does, but that's life, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I know I've said yeah like 14 times. I'm sorry. Um, I know it's weird, and it's weird to analyze, and it's weird to think about, and it's weird in general. It's weird when it happens. Like that's just all there is to it.
Mhm.
It's hard to express in words.
It can be, certainly. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing, but once you say it, the fact that it exists is blatantly obvious.
Mhm.
And
You just don't think about it. You just don't think about why the momentum that happens at the table, and it's such a natural give and take. I think that's why we don't think about it, because it is just a absolutely natural portion of this game.
so, question then, are there things you can do to promote it?
What do you mean?
Like, okay, so obviously you wanna keep it when you have it, but how how can you actively like increase it? You know what I mean? Like not, and by that I don't mean make it go faster, but make it stronger, I guess.
That's a conversation about relationship to the table, and I don't mean this, I'm not saying anybody's, unskilled, but skill as a GM, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your relationship to the table is important. It's how familiar you are with the people that you're playing with. I think if I would have lost power to con game, oh my god, it would have been over. It would have been done. We would have packed up, closed books. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what. We're done. Move on to the next game. Sorry guys. Have a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Being it's my home table, I can sit there and I know that my rapport with them is good enough that, well, we lost momentum, but we're going to pick up next week. See you all next week. It's fine. And I know that the momentum that we had going into that is a culmination of effectively 6 months of 6 months of gaming coming together to be like, all right, we're a group of people. We're very familiar with each other. We're getting to be friends, if you want to say it
Mm-hmm.
that way. So that helps with the just camaraderie at the table, and that helps with the relationship to your table.
Yeah.
And I think the only way that you can really build that give and take better is also communication, but just getting familiar with the table that you have, especially if it's going to be a weekly thing
Yeah.
or a frequent thing. Did that make sense?
Yeah. I was just, like kind of, excuse me, kind of just spitballing, a little bit of like, okay, can we think of ways to make that momentum stronger? And I guess it like kind of to tie up what you were saying, it's about the relationships, the engagement, the having it be real memorable,
I think you hit on it with engagement. The idea of engagement where it's that constant, we harp on player engagement all the time. The higher the player engagement, the better the gaming experience is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's why the gaming experience gets better the higher the player engagement, is because the give and take becomes a more palpable thing. If engagement is up and players are involved, the players are giving more, you're able to take more, and then thusly you're able to give more and the players are able to take more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they're dialed in, they're focused on what's happening. And so all that does for momentum is makes a bigger wall when something external causes that to stop.
Yeah.
But it also guarantees that you have a hook. Like, it's like a fish. Like, okay, I broke my line, but I got a hook in the mouth. So I
Yeah.
know they're hungry. I know they're wanting more. And so you're maybe able to salvage that more going forward after the momentum is broken because they were invested.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man, it's I'm still kind of just in this weird like state of holy crap. I didn't think about it, but momentum is such a real thing.
yes. Yes, it is. It is such a important thing to gaming that you just do not think about.
Mm-hmm. You don't, and
No.
it's weird that you don't.
It's weird that you don't, and it's weird when you do have to think about it.
Yeah.
But after that absolutely head-scratching conversation, any final thoughts on player engagement or losing momentum, I should say?
I mean, I don't know. I can't really think of any other than just, man, try not to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. I have a funny image to show you.
okay.
It kind of plays in, but
Aha.
Gav Karoga in his Facebook page just posted that.
Okay. That's a fun page. I may have seen it already. I was looking at, well, not if he just posted it, but okay. So I guess that's that. What are we on to now?
Game of the week.
Woohoo! Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
All right. You going first or am I going first?
I can go first, and I have one that I'm looking at that I'm really interested in. I want to get my hands on it and give it a try
Okay.
before I report back. Like, obviously, we've talked about it before. Game of the Week is not an endorsement of a quality game. Just because we highlight it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. However, that's also not me saying that I think this game is going to be bad. Okay.
No, it looks interesting.
Correct. So the game I have is Carbon 2185.
Aha.
It is a rulebook to convert 5th edition D&D into a cyberpunk setting.
I actually have a copy of this.
Do you?
Yes.
That's awesome.
I have not looked at it. I have heard Brett from Studio 404 actually told me it was, as he put it, surprisingly good for what he was expecting out of 5th edition D&D cyberpunk.
So, let me make my argument here. I think Dungeons and Dragons is the right system for this.
Okay.
I think Dungeons and Dragons works for a cyberpunk setting. And the reason I say that, it's not because the dungeons or the dragons. Mechanically, I think 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is a competent enough system that if you were to go through and rename stats, rename abilities, and keep things like your ability, like your carries, your items, skills, action economy, combat, all of that stuff works in a cyberpunk setting. Had it have its name slapped on it, right? You lose spells, you gain, say, a hacker, right?
Okay.
You would keep like perception, charisma.
I've been meaning to read it, along with a plethora of other things. My initial thought is that I think guns break D&D.
Now, guns break D&D because you're thinking on terms of bows and arrows and crossbows.
Okay.
I think a guns and melee weapon only system, okay, perfect example. I have a crossbow. It fires and does this much damage.
Right.
In a cyberpunk setting, it's already implied that if you're getting into combat, you're cybered up enough to feel comfortable that you're going to get into combat. You're going to catch a bullet. And so you're cybered up enough to catch a bullet, which means that the damage it does is equivalent to the damage that a crossbow would do.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Are you following me here?
I think I understand what you're saying. I'm not exactly how.
File the name crossbow off of it.
Okay.
It is a launched projectile weapon.
Okay.
What is a gun?
Projectile weapon.
It is a launched projectile weapon
Correct.
with a impressive range and serious damage.
Yes.
It's a heavy crossbow.
Yes. But
I think in D&D
hit point scaling in like D&D does, how do you deal with that? And I'm not saying they may have done something with that in the way they built their version of the system.
I'm betting they did. I'm betting they accounted for hit point scaling. What I want to know is what they're doing with armor class, but I have a hunch on what they're doing with armor class. It's probably like body armor. So your armor class would be like, in Cyberpunk, when you buy clothes, almost all clothes have some sort of soak rating or AP rating, or not AP, but whatever the Cyberpunk term was for it. SP. Yep.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they could have brought back DR too.
They could have. That would make sense.
Like, I feel like you need a little bit of both, maybe, but I don't know. Like I said, that's my thing. And now, again, a lot of people want to play Cyberpunk very run and gun, which if you take magic healing out of the equation,
and not only that, but you're telling a different kind of cyberpunk story in D&D. Let's just get that out of the way.
Okay.
You're not telling a cyberpunk story. You're telling a story in this world where I would bet you that the characters are a little bit more heroic, are a little bit more powerful, are a little bit more up on certain things. So I bet you characters are a little bit more heroic in this system. Whereas in, cyberpunk, it's heroism is not the goal of that game.
Fair.
And not saying that you couldn't tell an absolutely sleazy story with this, not saying that you couldn't tell some sort of, but I imagine it's going to be a lot more. What I imagine this to be more like is a Philip K. Dick cyberpunk, more Blade Runner, more, Total Recall, that kind of thing, and maybe less of a William Gibson novel, less of the fast hacking, the fast gunning, the super intense action that ends with everybody dead in a room. It's probably more of a not nuance, but more of a generalized open setting. But that's not me giving any sort of dogs towards this.
I was going to say, this is all conjecture because neither of us have read this damn book.
No, but they specifically say that it's movies, television, and TV.
Right.
And they're not calling out any particular book series. They're not calling out any particular authors. So I feel like maybe their conjecture is more what you would see on, like, maybe more of like what you would see in a sci-fi TV show. More like Altered Carbon. More like, I don't know. Give me a cyberpunk TV show. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm just curious. I'm really, really curious. And I was sitting here thinking about it, and I really feel like it might work. I feel like the numbers, I feel like filing the serial numbers off of the system works.
There's something kind of amusing about filing the numbers off in Cyberpunk.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've actually, they did something a while back where they were giving away PDFs of it, and I grabbed one, but this has been 2-3 years, and it's just been sitting there in my hard drive taunting me, along with many, many other things.
I feel that. But I want to get my hands on it and take a look at it and see what I think, because I think this could be, I don't know. If I like this, it could be the gateway to get people from D&D to Cyberpunk. You know how there's every time, and you've been there because you had it. We had the argument for like a month before we started your Cyberpunk game. Everybody goes, I don't know that system. I don't know about learning that. Especially hardcore D&D players. They're all like, that's another system I gotta learn. Like it's, advanced calculus. And meanwhile, this could be the answer to that. I don't know that system. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It's D&D, but the numbers are filed differently, right? It's D&D, but everything's slightly askew, right? You can still do your goofy min-max stuff that you always like to do because it's still D&D. I don't know. I'm very, very curious about this. And again, that's Carbon 2185.
Yep. All right. Well, going from that to mine, I came across something today, actually. Holy crap, it was just released last week. Or no, just released last week. It's a little game called Department X.
Yes, I looked at this.
And by the way, that's DEPT period X. If you're searching for it, of course, there'll be, like always, there'll be links in the show notes to the drive-through listing or somewhere where you can find the games as much as we can find those. So what this is, and this is a game, in all honesty, before, say, the last 6 months, I might have kind of looked past. But we've played a lot of really simple rules-light games, or not a lot, but we've played several really simple rules-light games recently and just had a ton of fun with them.
Yes.
And so this caught my eye. This is all of 4 pages. PDF will cost you $1.25. But here's in Department X, okay? Look, there's some serial numbers scratched away at there, I think. But here's the header, and so where I think it is very much nodding at that, it's not necessarily trying to be that. This is 1995. DVDs have just entered the entertainment market. The PS1, the internet, and Windows 95 were made available, and the role of technology in everyday life is on the increase. Blah, 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 blah. And so while, all the planet is being distracted by all this stuff, it's making harder for all the weird stuff to stay hidden.
Yes, so it's the X-Files.
Yes, but monitoring all of this weirdness is Department X, which is an unofficial department of every major government. And, there's just different stuff that I thought, even in the bottom of this, Department X is both needed and ridiculed. Yeah. Their job isn't to just suppress the truth that is out there, but to verify it and catalog it. So it's kind of like Delta Green meets the X-Files, but it feels very kind of self-effacing in a way too.
Yeah, it seems cool. I really thought this was neat. It was not the game I thought it was when I first clicked on it.
I expected more of a hardcore X-Files game.
Well, that's not quite what I was expecting, but yeah, I can understand how you got there from here. This seems really fun, and it's all of $1.25.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like kind of, another slice off the, SCP loaf of bread in a way, but it also like I kind of like the fact that it's keyed to like a retro vibe, because I mean 95, cell phones existed, but
Yeah, they weren't
weren't
everywhere.
common. They weren't.
No.
Google was. What year did Google start?
Technically, I think 99, 98, 90. No, it was before 99. It was like 97.
Okay, because I was gonna say I remember like web crawler and Yahoo
98.
being the major search engines.
September 4th, 1998 was when it launched.
So yeah, I mean like this is in that like the internet was a thing, but
Barely.
it wasn't as ubiquitous as we all know it now. And there, for me anyway, there's a certain amount of kind of nostalgia to that era of things.
Yeah, I could feel that. There's some nostalgia for me to that era of things too, because I mean I was young, but I remember some of that stuff, and I remember the old. Well, okay, the way I grew up in the area I grew up in, a lot of that old stuff carried forward for a lot of years, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like in school, I remember dealing with like DOS computers and early 98 computers and a lot of that, and, learning how to do the old school and just all that stuff.
I mean, I was in college. My freshman year of college would have been 1990, started in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Windows 95, I think, had just come out, but pretty much all of the campus labs the entire time I was there were still on 3.1.1.
Right.
Yeah, they were still DOS based.
It's a really, really freaking cool thing.
The fact that as a student you got a free email account was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember making my first email account. I still have it. And it was a big deal. But that's cool, man. I like it.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, 4 pages, written by somebody named Jonathan Hicks, published by Farsight Games. And like I said, it literally just dropped, a couple days ago. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Yep, Department X.
Well, I want to put a challenge out to our listeners because I haven't done one of these in a while. The show I've been sort of not obsessed with, but being drip-fed clips on TikTok. Let me double check. I think it's called Severance.
Okay.
Yes. So Severance is a show about these people, and from what I can gather, I need to watch the actual show itself. But Severance is a show about these people that are have their memories separated between their work and personal life. And so when they're at work, they almost have this like amnesia. They can't leave their office. It's really weird sci-fi show. Okay. I've been really enjoying the clips I've been finding of it, and I would like to know what people recommend to play this in. If you've seen this show, what's a system you would play that in? And so the challenge goes out, come into the Discord. If you can, when you come into the Discord, come yell at me and tell me a system to run this show in. And if you think this show sucks, come into the Discord and tell me this show sucks, please.
Okay.
But, yeah, I just want to throw that out there for people that don't know. As always, the links to our Discord are in the show notes. It is September. September means that PGX is the end of this month.
Yep.
And so, as an annoying reminder, PGX is the end of this month. We still have our promo code down in the links below.
Yeah, I assume it's still active. I haven't actually checked.
I would guess. I would imagine Wiz would say something if it's not.
Yeah.
PGX is going to be a really cool time. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there.
It's September 30th, October 1st at the
Correct.
Monroeville Convention Center in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Pittsburgh, for those of you who aren't from here.
Yeah, it's not
20
far
minutes
from
outside
the
of town.
city, right? Not far from the city. The reserved hotel block has ended. That it ended as of Wednesday, September 6th. However, there are a lot of hotels around Monroeville, or
Yeah.
even, if you wanted to stay in the city or whatever.
Yeah, there's a bunch there in Monroeville. I mean, the one they had rooms blocked at is literally they
A
share a
walk
parking
across
lot.
the parking lot. Yeah.
And if you're a horror movie buff, the mall where they filmed Romero's Dawn of the Dead is on the other side of the parking lot.
Correct. If you're into pinball machines, they have some really cool pinball happening, up to and including some like brand new pinball machines that just released. They're gonna have the new Bally Jurassic Park, which I'm excited to see.
Cool.
They have fighting game tournaments happening on. They have TTRPGs happening. Like if you get in on this, you could, join one of our games. Not to mention, you can join anybody else's game. Alex Thomas is going to be there from Mutants and Master, or from
Mutants and Masterminds.
Mutants and Masterminds. But what's the actual
Green Ronin?
Green Ronin games. Running some cool stuff with that. Bands. We've talked about the music. It is gonna be awesome. I'm so excited for PGX this year. I cannot wait. So
yeah, I'm right there too. Like it's coming so fast, and yet, I don't know where time goes.
I don't know. I don't know. But and then as always, our Patreon is in the doobly-doo
thingy. Yeah.
Yes.
In the doobly-doos.
Yes. Our Patreon's down there. Give us some love. If you listen to the podcast and you can, we would really appreciate your support.
Or we also have a drive-through affiliate code that's down there.
Yeah, that also helps too.
Help us a little bit that way.
Yeah, any of that helps keep this show, running and supported. And most importantly, we don't do ads except for the podcast at the beginning, but that's more good content for you to watch, for you to absorb. So, and that's all due to our Patreons. And we have a small but loyal group of patrons.
Thank you to all of you.
Yes. And as always, we want to remind everyone to be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and RPGs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.
I think that's it.
All right. So, shenanigans in 3, 2, and 1. Hey, folks, what's up? Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm Steve, and hang on a second. I need to adjust my audio.
I'm Steve, and let's hit the brakes real quick.
Hey, look, it's all thematic. We'll get there. Oh, test. All right, I think that... that's not...
Ooh.
All right, here, test 1 2, test 1 2. All right, that looks a little better. All right, so 3, 2, and 1.